Welcome to my channel HFY Universe. The Grand Hall of the Celestial Empire was silent. Hundreds of ambassadors, admirals, nobles, and military commanders watched as Princess Liara stepped onto the golden platform beneath the crystal dome. The annual Guardian selection ceremony had begun. For centuries, every royal heir of the Varelian Empire had chosen an elite Varelian warrior as their personal protector. It was tradition. It was law. Today was supposed to be no different. Rows of decorated officers stood proudly in ceremonial armor, each hoping to earn the honor. Emperor Valen rose from his throne. "Princess Liara," he announced. "The candidates stand before you. Choose the guardian who shall protect you and represent the honor of our bloodline." The princess nodded. She slowly walked past the rows of candidates. The hall remained perfectly silent. Then she stopped. Not before a decorated admiral. Not before a noble commander. Not before a member of the royal guard. She stopped before a lone human. Whispers instantly spread across the chamber. The human stood at attention, expressionless. Captain Ethan Cross. Former Earth Marine. Current security officer assigned to the Imperial Diplomatic Fleet. Nothing more. Princess Liara pointed directly at him. "I choose the human." The silence became absolute. Several nobles nearly dropped their ceremonial staffs. An admiral actually laughed, convinced it was a joke. But the princess remained serious. "The human will be my guardian." The emperor frowned. "Liara, humans are not members of the Imperial Guard." "Then make an exception." A wave of shocked murmurs swept through the chamber. Humans were respected warriors. Everyone knew that. But they were outsiders. No member of the royal family had ever selected a foreign species as guardian. Not once in 5,000 years. The emperor studied his daughter carefully. "You understand what this decision means." "I do. And if the Senate objects, then they may object." The chamber erupted into whispers again. Ethan remained motionless. Inside, however, he was wondering if this entire empire had lost its collective mind. He hadn't expected to be standing in the ceremony. He definitely hadn't expected to be chosen. The emperor sighed heavily. "Very well." Gasps echoed through the hall. "Captain Ethan Cross," the emperor declared. Ethan stepped forward. "Your Majesty, do you accept this duty?" Every eye in the empire seemed fixed on him. Ethan glanced toward the princess. She met his gaze calmly. Something told him this wasn't a random choice. "I'm honored to serve," he replied. The emperor nodded. "Then by imperial authority, you are now the royal guardian of Princess Liara." The hall exploded with outrage. 3 hours later, Ethan stood outside the princess's private observation deck. The assignment already felt strange. Royal guards were supposed to be elite warriors born into noble military families. Instead, the position now belonged to a human from Earth. The door opened. "Enter." Ethan stepped inside. The observation deck overlooked an ocean of stars. Princess Liara stood near the glass. Without turning around, she spoke. "You have questions?" "A few. You want to know why I chose you." "That would be one of them." The princess smiled slightly. "I watched the attack on Station 12. Ethan's expression hardened. That battle. He remembered it well. Pirates had assaulted a civilian station. Most security forces had retreated. Ethan and a handful of volunteers had stayed behind long enough for thousands of civilians to escape. Nearly everyone expected him to die. "But you survived," Liara said. "Barely. You stayed when everyone else fled." Ethan shrugged. "Someone had to." The princess finally turned. "That answer is exactly why I chose you." Ethan frowned. "I don't understand." "Most warriors seek honor." She pointed toward the stars. "Most politicians seek power." Then she looked directly into his eyes. "But you protected strangers who could offer you neither." Ethan had no response. For a moment neither spoke. Then warning alarms suddenly erupted throughout the ship. Red lights flashed. The deck shook violently. Ethan instantly moved. Combat instincts took over. "Princess, get down." The vessel trembled again. A frightened voice echoed through the intercom. "Unknown vessels exiting hyperspace. Battle stations. Battle stations." Ethan rushed toward the tactical display. Dozens of hostile warships were appearing. Too many. Far too many. The princess stared at the screen. "Who are they?" An officer answered seconds later. His voice sounded terrified. "The Black Sun Armada." Ethan's blood ran cold. Even he knew that name. The most feared pirate fleet in known space. And they were heading directly toward the Imperial vessel carrying the princess. Outside the observation window, hundreds of enemy ships emerged from hyperspace, like predators surrounding prey. The hunt had begun, and Ethan suddenly realized why Princess Liara might need a human guardian after all. Tonight we continue the story. The alien princess chose a human guard. The galaxy was shocked. Now let's begin. The Black Sun Armada surrounded the Imperial vessel like a pack of predators. Hundreds of warships emerged from hyperspace, blocking every possible escape route. On the bridge, officers stared at the tactical displays in disbelief. Princess Liara stood beside Ethan Cross. Neither spoke. The situation was obvious. They were trapped. A transmission suddenly appeared on the main screen. A scarred alien wearing black armor looked back at them. His mechanical eye glowed red. Everyone immediately recognized him. Dreadlord Craven, leader of the Black Sun Armada, one of the most feared pirates in the galaxy. Craven smiled. "Princess Liara, what do you want?" she asked. "Simple." His smile widened. "Surrender yourself." The bridge fell silent. Liara folded her arms. "No." Craven chuckled. "I was hoping you'd say that." The transmission ended. Seconds later, the pirate fleet opened fire. The battle erupted instantly. Energy beams crossed the darkness of space. Explosions lit up the stars. One Imperial escort ship vanished in a massive fireball. Another lost its engines. The bridge shook violently. Shields at 92%. Enemy fighters approaching. Multiple impacts detected. Crew members rushed from station to station. The Black Sun Armada was attacking from every direction. Ethan watched the tactical map carefully. Something felt wrong. This wasn't a pirate raid. It was too organized. Too precise. Someone had planned this. Someone wanted the princess. A loud impact echoed through the ship. Warning lights flashed. An officer looked up from his console. Boarding pods detected. The pirates were coming aboard. Within minutes, explosions rocked several decks. The enemy had breached the hull. Ethan immediately turned toward the princess. "We need to move." Together they left the bridge with several royal guards. As they entered a lower corridor, armed pirates suddenly appeared ahead. The royal guards opened fire. A fierce battle erupted. Energy bolts filled the hallway. 2 pirates fell. Then 3 more. But the attackers kept coming. Ethan raised his rifle. Years of military experience took over. Every movement was calm. Every shot was precise. The pirates quickly learned why humans had earned such a dangerous reputation. Within moments, the corridor belonged to Ethan's team. They finally reached a secured section of the ship. A wounded officer approached them. "The escort fleet is collapsing." Everyone became silent. The officer continued. "There is one shuttle ready for emergency evacuation." Liara immediately shook her head. "I'm not leaving." "The Empire needs you alive," Ethan said. The princess looked at him. "You would leave everyone else behind." "No." Ethan glanced toward the battle reports. "But if you're captured, the Empire loses far more than this ship." The princess remained silent for several seconds. Finally she nodded. "Prepare the shuttle." The evacuation bay was already waiting. Engines hummed. Crew members rushed to complete launch procedures. For the first time since the attack began, hope appeared. Then the alarms changed. A new warning filled the bay. Enemy forces approaching. The pirates had found them. Heavy impacts slammed against the main blast doors. Again and again. The metal began to bend. Ethan checked his weapon. The remaining guards formed a defensive line. The final stand was about to begin. The blast doors suddenly exploded inward. Pirates flooded into the bay. Weapons firing, shouting, charging. The defenders answered with everything they had. The battle became chaos. Smoke filled the air. Blast of fire flashed in every direction. Then Ethan saw it. A pirate commander had slipped through the fighting. His weapon was aimed directly at Princess Liara. Time seemed to slow. Without hesitation, Ethan stepped in front of her. The energy blast struck him square in the chest. Pain exploded through his body. He crashed to the floor. The princess dropped beside him. Ethan. Her voice sounded distant. The world around him blurred. As darkness closed in, he saw Liara's terrified expression. And somewhere far away, aboard his flagship, Dreadlord Craven smiled. Because the real mission had only just begun. Tonight we continue the story. The alien princess chose a human guard. The galaxy was shocked. Now let's begin. That was the first thing Ethan Cross felt. A burning pain spread through his chest as distant voices echoed around him. Slowly he opened his eyes. Bright medical lights hung above him. For a moment he didn't know where he was. Then his memory returned. The battle. Pirates. The princess. Ethan immediately tried to sit up. A sharp pain shot through his body. Easy. A familiar voice stopped him. Princess Liara was sitting beside the medical bed. Relief appeared on her face. You're awake. Ethan looked around. The room shook slightly. We're on the shuttle. Liara nodded. You saved my life. Ethan gave a weak smile. Part of the job. The princess looked away for a moment. You almost died. Before Ethan could answer, the shuttle suddenly trembled. Warning alarms filled the cabin. The pilot's voice echoed through the speakers. Enemy fighters behind us. Everyone inside became tense. They weren't safe yet. Not even close. The shuttle raced through the battlefield. Outside the small viewports, explosions lit up space. Several pirate fighters pursued them relentlessly. The pilot fought desperately to avoid incoming fire. Another blast rocked the shuttle. Shields failing. Ethan forced himself out of the medical bed. You should be resting, Liara said. I'll rest later. The princess knew arguing was pointless. Together they moved toward the cockpit. The tactical display showed the situation clearly. 3 pirate fighters were closing rapidly. At this rate, the shuttle wouldn't survive. The pilot swallowed nervously. They're too fast. Then a voice suddenly came through the communication system. Unknown. Human. This is Earth Patrol Vessel Valkyrie. We have you on scanners. Everyone looked up. The pilot blinked. A human ship. The voice returned. Hang on. We're coming. Moments later, streaks of light appeared from hyperspace. 3 sleek human warships emerged directly between the shuttle and the pirate fighters. The pirates opened fire immediately. The humans fired back. The battle lasted less than a minute. 1 pirate fighter exploded. Then another. The last turned to flee. A human missile destroyed it before it could escape. Silence filled the shuttle. The danger was gone. Now. Ethan smiled. Right on time. The pilot stared in disbelief. 3 ships defeated an entire fighter squadron. Liara looked at Ethan. Humans always arrive like this. Ethan laughed softly. Usually later. For the first time since the attack began, the princess smiled. Several hours later, the shuttle docked with the human vessel. The crew welcomed them aboard. Medical teams immediately examined Ethan. Fortunately, the pirate blast had damaged his armor more than his body. He would recover. As Ethan left the medical bay, he noticed unusual activity throughout the ship. Officers moved quickly. Conversations were tense. Something was wrong. A human commander approached him. Captain Cross. Ethan recognized him immediately. Commander Sarah Mitchell. An old friend. "You look terrible," she said. "Good to see you too." Mitchell smiled briefly before becoming serious. "We intercepted classified transmissions from the battle." Ethan's expression hardened. "What kind of transmissions?" The commander activated a holographic display. Several encrypted messages appeared. Someone inside the Empire helped Craven. Princess Liara stared at the screen. "A traitor." Mitchell nodded. "Not just any traitor." She highlighted one message. The information came from someone very close to the imperial court. The room became silent. The attack had never been about piracy. It had been an assassination attempt. Or worse, kidnapping. Someone powerful wanted Princess Liara removed. The princess slowly sat down. For the first time, Ethan saw genuine concern in her eyes. If this is true, then nowhere in the Empire is safe. "Exactly," Mitchell replied. "The enemy already knew your travel route." Ethan folded his arms. "Which means they'll try again." The commander nodded. "They won't stop." A heavy silence followed. Then Liara looked at Ethan. "What do we do now?" Ethan studied the star map. Somewhere out there, Craven was waiting. And somewhere inside the Empire, a traitor was helping him. The mission had changed. This was no longer about protecting a princess. It was about uncovering a conspiracy that could destroy an entire empire. Ethan looked toward the stars. "We find out who's behind this." The princess nodded. And then, a small smile appeared on Ethan's face. "Then we make them regret it." Far away, aboard his flagship, Dreadlord Craven received a report that the princess had escaped. For the first time since the attack began, the pirate lord stopped smiling. Because he knew something dangerous. The princess now had a human protecting her. And humans were famous for one thing. They never stopped hunting those who threatened the people under their protection. Tonight we continue the story. The alien princess chose a human guard. The galaxy was shocked. Now let's begin. The human patrol vessel raced through hyperspace. Deep inside the ship's command center, Princess Liara stared at the holographic display. Dozens of encrypted messages floated above the table. Every one of them pointed to the same terrifying conclusion. Someone inside the imperial court had betrayed the empire. Someone powerful. Someone close to the throne. Commander Sarah Mitchell highlighted a transmission. "We managed to decrypt another message." The room became silent. Ethan stepped closer. "What does it say?" Mitchell activated the recording. A distorted voice filled the chamber. "The princess must not reach the capital. Craven will be paid upon confirmation." The message ended. Liara's face turned pale. There was no doubt anymore. This wasn't piracy. This was a conspiracy. Someone wanted her gone. Hours later, the ship arrived at a remote human outpost hidden near the edge of Imperial space. The station was small but heavily defended. For now, it was the safest place available. As Liara walked through the station, she noticed something unusual. The humans treated her normally. No bowing. No exaggerated ceremonies. No fear. To them, she wasn't a princess. She was simply another person under their protection. The experience felt strangely refreshing. Ethan led her toward the operations center. Before they entered, an officer rushed toward them. "Captain, what is it?" "We found the source." Ethan immediately stopped. "The source of what?" "The encrypted transmissions." The officer looked directly at Liara. "They originated from the imperial capital." The princess felt her stomach tighten. That meant the traitor was still there, waiting, watching. Inside the operations room, a massive holographic map filled the air. Several imperial officials appeared on the display. Mitchell pointed toward one particular figure. A powerful senator named Varric. One of the wealthiest individuals in the empire. One of the emperor's most trusted advisors. Liara frowned. Senator Varric. Mitchell nodded. His private communications matched the encrypted signals. Ethan folded his arms. Do we have proof? Not enough. The commander looked frustrated. We know he's involved, but we can't prove he's the mastermind. Liara stared at the image. Varric had served the imperial court for decades. Why would he betray the empire? Then a disturbing thought entered her mind. What if he isn't working alone? The room became silent. Nobody had considered that possibility. Far away, aboard his massive flagship, Dreadlord Craven stood before a giant viewing screen. A transmission appeared. The image of Senator Varric emerged. The pirate lord smiled. Senator. Varric looked irritated. You failed. Craven shrugged. The human interfered. At the mention of Ethan, Varric's expression darkened. The human was never supposed to survive. Craven laughed. Trust me. I've noticed. The senator leaned forward. The princess must die before she reaches the capital. Craven's smile disappeared. And if she doesn't? Varric's voice became cold. Then everything we've worked for is finished. The transmission ended. For a moment, Craven remained silent. Then he looked toward the stars. Prepare the fleet. One of his officers stepped forward. We found the human outpost. Craven smiled again. This time it was far more dangerous. Excellent. Back at the station, Ethan couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. The enemy had obtained information too easily. Too quickly. Almost as if they still had access to their movements. Suddenly, alarms exploded throughout the station. Red lights flashed. Crew members rushed into the corridors. Ethan immediately grabbed his rifle. A voice echoed over the intercom. Unknown fleet detected. All personnel report to battle stations. Ethan ran toward the command center. When he arrived, the tactical display showed a nightmare. Hundreds of hostile ships were emerging from hyperspace. Princess Liara stared at the screen. No. Commander Mitchell's face became grim. They found us. Ethan clenched his jaw. The station's location had been secret. Only a handful of people knew about it. Which meant there was only one explanation. The traitor had access to everything. The conspiracy was bigger than they imagined. Much bigger. Outside the station, the Black Sun Armada formed an enormous wall of warships. At the center of the fleet stood Craven's flagship. Waiting. Watching. Ready to finish what had begun. Ethan looked at the approaching armada and slowly checked his weapon. The princess stood beside him. Neither spoke. Both understood the truth. The war had only just begun. Tonight we continue the story. The alien princess chose a human guard. The galaxy was shocked. Now let's begin. The alarms echoed across the human outpost. Outside the station, hundreds of pirate warships surrounded the facility. The Black Sun Armada had arrived. Inside the command center, officers watched the tactical displays in silence. The situation was grim. The station had powerful defenses, but it wasn't built to withstand a siege by an entire fleet. Commander Sarah Mitchell studied the incoming enemy formations. They're preparing for a full assault. Princess Liara stared at the massive armada. How did they find us so quickly? Nobody answered. Because everyone already knew. The traitor inside the empire was still feeding information to Craven. And until that traitor was exposed, nowhere would be safe. A transmission suddenly appeared. Dreadlord Craven's face filled the main screen. The pirate lord looked unusually confident. Princess Liara. Liara stepped forward. What do you want? Craven smiled. The same thing I've always wanted. His mechanical eye glowed. You. Ethan folded his arms. Sorry. She's busy. Several officers laughed despite the danger. Craven's gaze shifted toward Ethan. The smile vanished. You continue to be a problem, human. I get that a lot. The pirate commander shook his head. You should have died on the Imperial ship. Ethan smiled. Yet here I am. For a moment, Craven looked genuinely annoyed. Then the transmission ended. Seconds later, the attack began. The first wave hit the station like a storm. Energy beams lit up the darkness of space. Defensive cannons fired continuously. Explosions erupted across both fleets. Several pirate ships were destroyed immediately. But there were too many. Far too many. The Black Sun Armada kept advancing. Inside the station, the entire structure trembled under repeated impacts. Shields at 70%. Enemy bombers approaching. Multiple hull breaches reported. The battle was escalating rapidly. Ethan moved through the command center, helping coordinate defenses. Then a communications officer suddenly shouted, "Captain! What? We've received a priority transmission from Earth." Everyone looked up. Mitchell immediately opened the channel. A human admiral appeared. His expression was serious. "We've reviewed the situation." Ethan nodded. "And?" The admiral smiled slightly. "Humanity does not abandon its allies." The screen changed. A star map appeared. Then everyone saw it. Hundreds of signals. Jumping into hyperspace. Heading directly toward the outpost. The room became silent. Princess Liara stared at the display. "Those can't all be human ships." The admiral's smile widened. "Oh, they are." Hours later, the pirate fleet continued its assault. Craven was confident victory was only a matter of time. Then one of his officers suddenly froze. "Commander!" Craven frowned. "What is it?" The officer pointed at the sensors. New contacts were appearing. Thousands of them. The tactical screen filled with blue markers. More, and more, and more. Craven's expression changed for the first time. "What am I looking at?" The officer swallowed. "Human reinforcements." Silence filled the bridge. A second officer checked the numbers. Then checked again. "They've sent everything." Outside the system, hyperspace ruptured. Massive human warships emerged. Then dozens more. Then hundreds. The arrival seemed endless. The stars themselves appeared to split apart as humanity's fleet entered the battlefield. Back on the station, cheers erupted throughout the command center. The human fleet had arrived. Princess Liara watched in amazement. She had never seen anything like it. The humans weren't merely sending help. They were bringing an army. Ethan crossed his arms and smiled. "Told you we'd be fine." Liara looked at him. "Do humans always respond like this?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Only when someone threatens people under our protection." The princess suddenly understood why humanity's reputation had spread across the galaxy. It wasn't because humans were the strongest species. It was because once they chose to stand beside someone, they refused to leave. No matter the cost. Far away, aboard his flagship, Dreadlord Craven watched the growing human fleet. For the first time in many years, he felt something unfamiliar. Fear. Because the battle he thought he had already won was about to become a war. And humanity had just arrived. The arrival of the human fleet changed everything. Across the battlefield, thousands of human warships emerged from hyperspace. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, battleships. The endless stream of vessels seemed to stretch across the stars themselves. Inside Craven's flagship, officers stared at their sensors in disbelief. "Commander, enemy numbers continue increasing." Craven clenched his jaw. "How many?" The officer looked nervous. "More than 3,000 confirmed warships." Silence filled the bridge. No pirate fleet could match that kind of force. No pirate fleet had ever expected to. Back at the human outpost, cheers echoed through every deck. Princess Liara watched the tactical display. The blue icons representing human vessels now vastly outnumbered the pirates. Even Commander Mitchell seemed impressed. Earth Command wasn't taking chances. Ethan smirked. "They usually don't." The princess looked at him. All of this, for me. Ethan shook his head. No. Liara looked confused. The human captain pointed toward the display. This fleet came because someone attacked our allies. For a moment, the princess simply stared at him. Then she smiled. Humanity truly was different. The battle began moments later. Human ships surged forward. The pirate fleet opened fire. Space exploded into chaos. Missiles streaked through the darkness. Energy weapons flashed across the void. Entire squadrons clashed between the two fleets. But something quickly became obvious. The pirates were losing. Badly. Human commanders moved with terrifying efficiency. Every attack was coordinated. Every formation supported the next. Within the first hour, dozens of pirate vessels were destroyed. The Black Sun Armada began falling apart. Aboard his flagship, Craven slammed a fist against his command console. Hold the line. But his officers looked terrified. The humans weren't slowing down. If anything, they were becoming more aggressive. One officer turned toward him. Commander, several wings are retreating. Craven growled. Cowards! Another explosion shook the flagship. Warning alarms erupted. The battle was moving closer. Far closer than Craven liked. Meanwhile, Ethan received new intelligence from Earth Command. The data came directly from cyber warfare specialists. Commander Mitchell studied the report. Then her eyes widened. What is it? Ethan asked. Mitchell looked up. We found the money trail. The room became silent. Varric? Ethan asked. Mitchell nodded. Yes. She activated a holographic display. Thousands of secret transactions appeared. Everyone connected Senator Varric to Craven's organization. Princess Liara stared at the evidence. The proof was undeniable. Varric had funded the pirates. Varric had organized the attack. Varric had betrayed the Empire. Before anyone could celebrate, another message arrived. This one came directly from the imperial capital. Emperor Valen himself appeared on the screen. The aging ruler looked exhausted, but determined. Liara. The princess stepped forward. Father. The emperor listened as Mitchell presented the evidence. When the report ended, silence followed. Then the emperor spoke. Arrest Senator Varric immediately. The order spread throughout the empire within minutes. But it was already too late. Varric had disappeared. Far away, inside a hidden transport vessel, Senator Varric watched the news. Imperial security forces were raiding his estates. His accounts had been frozen. His allies were abandoning him. Everything was collapsing. The senator clenched his fists. Years of planning were unraveling. Then a communication channel opened. Craven appeared. The pirate lord looked furious. The humans ruined everything. Varric nodded. We need to leave. Craven's eyes narrowed. No. The senator frowned. What do you mean? The pirate commander leaned forward. I have one final move. A cold smile appeared on his face. And this time the human won't stop me. Back on the battlefield, the Black Sun Armada continued to retreat. Victory seemed close. Too close. Ethan had fought enough wars to recognize the feeling. Something wasn't right. Craven was dangerous. Men like him didn't simply surrender. Then the sensors suddenly detected something. A massive energy spike. The command center became silent. Mitchell stared at the readings. Her face turned pale. Ethan. What is it? The commander swallowed. Craven's flagship isn't retreating. The tactical display zoomed in. Everyone watched the giant pirate vessel. Its weapons were powering up. But not toward the human fleet. Not toward the station. Toward something else. Toward the planet below. A civilian colony containing millions of innocent people. Princess Liara's eyes widened. No. Ethan immediately understood. Craven couldn't win the war. So he intended to punish everyone instead. And the weapon charging aboard his flagship was powerful enough to destroy an entire world. The command center fell silent. Every screen showed the same terrifying image. Craven's flagship was charging a planet-killer weapon. Below, millions of civilians lived on the colony world. Families, children, workers, people who had nothing to do with the war. Princess Liara stared at the display. "He can't be serious." Commander Mitchell checked the readings again. Her face was grim. "He is." The energy levels continued rising. If the weapon fired, the colony would be destroyed. Aboard his flagship, Dreadlord Craven smiled. The battle was lost. His fleet was shattered. His allies had abandoned him. But he could still leave a scar on the galaxy. A scar nobody would forget. One officer hesitated. "Commander, there are civilians down there." Craven glared at him. The officer immediately fell silent. "Charge the weapon." The countdown continued. Back on the station, panic spread through the command center. Human warships were trying to break through. But the flagship remained heavily defended. There wasn't enough time. At the current rate, the weapon would fire within minutes. Ethan studied the tactical display. Then he noticed something. Narrow path. Dangerous. Almost impossible. But possible. He looked toward Mitchell. "I need a fighter." The commander's eyes widened. "No. It's the only way." Liara immediately understood. "You plan to attack the flagship yourself." Ethan nodded. The room became silent. Everyone knew the odds. A single fighter against Craven's defenses. It was practically a suicide mission. The princess stepped forward. "You don't have to do this." Ethan smiled. "Actually, I do." "Why?" For a moment Ethan thought about Earth. About the people he'd sworn to protect. About the promise he had made when he became a soldier. Then he looked at Liara. "Because somebody has to." The same answer she had heard when they first met. The same answer that had made her choose him as her guardian. Minutes later, a lone human fighter launched from the station. Every screen across the fleet followed its progress. The small craft accelerated toward Craven's flagship. Enemy ships immediately opened fire. Ethan dodged through explosions. Energy beams flashed past his cockpit. Warning alarms screamed. His shields dropped, then dropped again. Still he kept going. Inside the pirate flagship, officers noticed the approaching fighter. Craven laughed. One fighter. His amusement quickly faded. The fighter wasn't turning away. It was heading directly for them. Through impossible odds. Through concentrated fire. Through everything. Like a missile. Like a human. Ethan pushed the engines beyond safety limits. The fighter shook violently. Warning messages filled every screen. He ignored them. Ahead, the planet-killer weapon continued charging. 1 minute remaining. Then 40 seconds. Then 30. The human fleet watched in silence. No one spoke. No one looked away. Princess Liara stood frozen. Her hands clenched tightly. For the first time in days she felt fear. Not for herself. For Ethan. The fighter finally broke through the defensive perimeter. Missiles locked onto the flagship. Ethan fired everything he had. The first explosions struck the outer hull. The second wave crippled the shield generators. The final missile hit the weapon itself. For one brief second nothing happened. Then the entire front section of the flagship erupted. A massive explosion tore through the vessel. The planet-killer weapon detonated internally. Fire spread across the ship. Systems failed. The weapon was gone. The colony was saved. Cheers exploded across the human fleet. But they quickly faded. Because Ethan's fighter had disappeared inside the blast. No signal remained. No communication. Nothing. The command center became silent. Princess Liara stared at the screen, unable to speak. Hours later the battle ended. The surviving pirates surrendered. Craven's flagship drifted in ruins. Search teams combed through the wreckage. Most believed there would be nothing left to find. Then a transmission arrived. A rescue team had discovered an escape pod. One occupant, human, Live. The entire station erupted with celebration. Princess Liara rushed to the medical bay. When the pod finally opened, Ethan stepped out. Bruised, exhausted, but alive. The princess looked at him. For a moment neither spoke. Then she smiled. A genuine smile. "You are impossible." Ethan laughed. "I hear that a lot." Weeks later, Senator Varick was captured while attempting to flee Imperial space. The evidence against him was overwhelming. His conspiracy collapsed. His supporters vanished. Justice finally arrived. As for Dreadlord Craven, his empire of piracy was finished. The Black Sun Armada existed no more. Several months later, a grand ceremony was held in the imperial capital. Representatives from hundreds of worlds attended. Emperor Valen stood before the crowd. Then he called Ethan Cross forward. The human walked onto the platform. The entire hall rose to its feet. The Emperor smiled. "Captain Ethan Cross. For bravery beyond duty, for loyalty beyond expectation, and for saving millions of innocent lives." The Emperor placed the highest imperial medal around Ethan's neck. The crowd erupted into applause. The galaxy had once been shocked that an alien princess chose a human guard. Now they finally understood why. Because when darkness came, when everyone else ran, the humans stayed. And that was something the galaxy would never forget. The end. Rocket sparkles.